Joe Rossi has something cooking up for this defense. Oh, yeah.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator, and recruiting assistant here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Now, y'all, I know it was wild. It was crazy. We didn't have a show yesterday on a Monday, and it's just not right. But it's tax time, folks, and your boy almost forgot to get those taxes in. Now, if you have forgotten as well, today is the final day, so it is time. Listen to the podcast while you do your taxes. There you go. It'll get you calm while you're stressed out by the different little things you have to do each and every time of the year when it comes to this time. But we're not here to talk about taxes. We're here to talk about the Golden Gophers. And this is the hot spot to come to each and every day of the week when we're talking Golden Gopher sports over at Locked On Golden Gophers. You can find us at any place you find your podcast. Stitcher, Apple Pods, iTunes, Spotify, you name it, you'll find us there. And if you could, I would much appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review there so we can have other Gophers fans find this show, keep building the community. And if that's not your style, that's not your jam, or you just want to see my face, head on over to YouTube, hit subscribe. I've got some graphics coming in the works. It sounds like they might be here by the beginning of June, but I'm hoping maybe even a little bit sooner. We'll deck this thing out. We'll get this thing going over on the YouTube channel. So you're definitely going to want to tap in, tune in, subscribe, follow, and all that jazz, and make Locked On Golden Gophers your first listen when it comes to Gophers Daily Sports. Now, today we're talking Joe Rossi. We're talking the defense, and defense wins championships, right? So you got to be up in this thing. You got to love it to know that we have Joe Rossi back, one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire conference and the entire nation. Okay, let's be real, because that is what it is. And honestly, I saw somebody post something after Trill officially committed to the Texas Longhorns. If you haven't heard yet, Trill Carter, Gophers' former defensive tackle, did officially commit to the Texas Longhorns. Good for him. You know, we'll see what happens. Again, they have 3 starters locked in down there, so little confusion on that front. But regardless, what I saw from some of the comments was like, Trill goes from a team that played no defense to another team that played no defense. Look, what's the phrase? Tell me you don't know football without telling me you don't know football. Well, that person absolutely told on themselves, because the Gophers defense has been a top 15, and actually I'm pretty sure they've been a top 10 defense for the past 2 seasons now. So go ahead and tell on yourself there. But we're talking Joe Rossi because Joe Rossi is at the helm of that defensive success. Now, one thing that Joe Rossi does as a defensive coordinator that puts him up into the category of the best in the nation is each and every year he adjusts his personnel. He adjusts what he calls, what he runs, what the strengths of that defense will be by looking at his personnel and adjusting to their play styles and how they can thrive and succeed off of the talents that they have in that room. It's not a, look, this is my system, this is how it works, this is how it goes, I'm a genius, and this is how you have to do it. No, he adjusts it to his players' strengths and to hide weaknesses, so that way they can thrive on their own, play with natural instinct, play with quick speed, not thinking so much. And that's why spring is so huge for the defense and fall camp, because it allows you to work out the kinks now. It allows you to get towards instinct and get towards understanding of the concepts that they are focusing on this year now, so that way you can play fast, play quick, and play ready in the fall when the season hits. Now, don't just take me saying this as fact, because we can look at the strengths of it as well. 2021, there was a lot of chaos created by the front seven. That was the strength of the defense in 2021. You had Boye Mafe, Esezia Tomewu, Jack Gibbons, Mariano Sorimarin. All these guys created pressure for the Gophers front. They got on the quarterback's butt. They got after it, and they made it was chaos. They were making life on their defensive backs much easier, less time having to defend on the secondary side of things. And they got into a lot more sacks. They had more pressures. They had what last year's team, quite frankly, did not. But what the team lacked was turnovers. They did not force a lot of turnovers, and that was the weakness of that Gophers team. Now, weakness, maybe that's not the right term. Maybe it's more of that's what the team lacked was turnovers. But overall, that defense, again, finished as one of the top 10 defenses in the nation. Then you flip to 2022, again, another top 10, top 15 defense in the entire country, but it was a completely different looking defense. That defense in 2022, so last year, was predicated on speed, quickness, swarming to the football in the no-fly zone. The secondary was the strength of last year's team. The ability to see a screen. I remember multiple games where a screen was dumped off to the running back or a wheel route to the running back, and I'm thinking to myself, man, they're about to get a first down off of this thing. It's like 3rd and 10, and I'm like, oh, there is no one around to stop this running back. All of a sudden, I'm seeing Flip Dixon right there in the action. I'm seeing Jordan Howden right there in the action, like within 3 yards. So this 3rd and 10 that's looking like a first down turns into a 4th and 7, 4th and 6, and they ended up punting. We saw that a lot, and you can see that trend and that success in the 3rd down efficiency rate with the defenses. The Gophers finished in the top 5, I believe. I believe in one of the 3rd down categories, the Gophers finished as a top 2 team in the entire nation. That tells you how quick, how fast, how swarm mentality that Gophers team last year was. That was a major strength, and we saw it play in each and every week. Now, there were moments of flux, and the run defense was probably the weaker part. Not necessarily weak in general. They still were a top 10 team in rushing yards allowed in the entire country, but the success was predicated off of the passing defense after how they fly to the ball and weed out the short action game, and they created turnovers throughout the year. So that flaw, that lack of turnovers we saw in 2021, we saw it tick up in 2022, but what did the team lack? They lacked pressure. They lacked sacks. So you saw some give and take between the 2 years, but you still saw the success from across the board. So what will 2023 bring? I don't think we're going to see the same amount of speed. I think it's a younger team. I think it's a harder hitting team, and that harder hitting could maybe lead to more impactful turnovers, some big plays, some fumbles. Maybe we're seeing more fumbles, but you also have the strength of the defensive backs. You've got Tyler Nubin coming back. You've got some young talent in guys like Darius Green and Coleman Bryson that have showed, hey, we can lay the power. Coleman Bryson, I got that return speed. I can get that pick 6 for the win in the bowl game. I mean, we've seen it from these young guys. Justin Wally has made some huge interceptions over his career already, and he's stepping into a bigger role. And then you've got guys who can lay the wood when it comes to the hitting aspect, the tackling aspect, and that hasn't seemed like a weakness with this young defense. A lot of clean tackling, a lot of good tackling has presented itself over the spring practices. So you got Cody Lindenberg can absolutely lay down the smackdown. You've got Tyler Nubin can lay the smackdown. You've got all sorts of different heavy hitter guys on this defense that I think it's going to make itself present. I think you could maybe see some more fumbles, and I think you're going to see more pressure created by that defensive line from guys like Devin Eastern, Kyler Baugh, who have been touted over the spring. Devin Eastern's reach, his length, it's going to cause problems, and hopefully that internal pressure will make the quarterback have to kick out, get on the run quicker, and then hopefully that edge pressure we're seeing from Anthony Smith, from Ja Joyner, from Danny Strigow, guys of that sort that can basically keep it inside. So the quarterback is scrambling, panicking, chaos, and then it's less time again for our DBs to cover, knowing that our cornerbacks, especially outside of Justin Wally, are super young. Now, again, I expect them to go to the portal after the spring, maybe bring in some depth when it comes to cornerbacks. Maybe you're looking at a Sam linebacker as well. But overall, the Minnesota defense is always going to have a focus on 3 things. And Coach Rossi has talked about these things time and time again. That's no explosives. We always try to hone in the explosives. Making adjustments mid-game will be huge for the Gophers defense. It always is, and that's why time of possession is typically so important for the Gophers. Now, we might not run the ball so much, but if we can find success in the short passing game and having long extended drives still, it's going to be huge for the defense to make early adjustments in the game to continue to give issues to the opposing offenses. So no explosives, making adjustments, and then finally the ball is the program. You got to create turnovers. You got to get the ball back into the offense's hands. Those are the three things you can always get when it comes to a Joe Rossi defense. But from what we've seen in some of these spring practices, there are some new elements that I absolutely love. Now, hopefully they carry over to the season, but they could give some personnel some huge, ginormous issues when it comes to next year and thwarting offenses and making these quarterbacks second guess, third guess, and cause turnovers. There's one huge thing that has stood out to me in these spring practices, and that is what we are talking about coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is doing an awesome new promotion, and again, it's for new customers, but it is a no sweat first bet. So if you haven't tried FanDuel out yet, now is the time because new customers can set up and get a no sweat first bet, which means if you lose your first bet, you lose the first one, I shot for the moon and it didn't work out. It's okay because you can win up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but baseball has officially begun. It's also time for the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, and what a better time to get started in this area than right now, where there are so many different things you can bet on. Playoffs, more playoffs, and even the MLB getting started up as well. So don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet over at FanDuel. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Locked On. All right, Gophers fans, thank you so much for listening to Locked On Golden Gophers and making us your first listen when it comes to Gophers Daily Sports. But I want to give a special shout out to the everydayers out there who are tuning in each and every day, the ones who are mad at me for not having that Monday show. And trust me, I got you covered. We're going to have a Saturday show this weekend after the spring game. We're going to get some follow-up, what we saw in the spring game, what to look forward to, names that stood out, and so much more. So I'll make up for it. I promise that to you. So thank you, everydayers, for tuning in. And if you are an everydayer, last week we got the Wisconsin fans all rattled and upset and just in their feelings. If you didn't see that, I called Luke Fickell a little overrated heading into 2023, Luke Fickell and Wisconsin. And then an article comes out saying Luke Fickell is a top 10 coach in the nation. You just can't make this stuff up. I mean, I guess this year's going to be the year for them to prove it. But if you want to see a bunch of Wisconsin fans in their feelings, go check out the 60 plus comments we have over there in that video. You'll get a good kick out of it. But you can also hear why there is some reason to think that that team is going to be overrated in 2023 because of so many changes. But that's what we talked about last week. This week, we've got some updates for you when it comes to spring practice, what you should be looking for. So you're definitely going to want to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of that content heading into the spring game this Saturday. So Thursday and Friday, we're going to talk about the offense and then the defense. And then tomorrow, Wednesday, we are going to do a little bit of fun, We're coming on the show with John Vogel to talk about the Gophers draft prospects because next week is the NFL draft. So there is so much to talk about coming up and you're not going to want to miss it. Be sure to hit subscribe and join the everydayers out there as well. But let's talk about Joe Rossi. Let's talk about some of these new things that are exciting for the Gophers and they can contribute to absolute chaos for quarterbacks moving forward. Now, some of the things that really stand out to me that we've seen so far in these spring rotations, these spring practices and whatnot. The first one is the safety nickel flexibility. Now, this is what I think can truly give teams issues. And why will it give them issues? We're talking about you have Tyler Nubin back there as a safety. He's going to be a staple. He's going to be a defensive captain, a leader on the defense. He'll be in his role as a safety. But typically we're seeing Darius Green paired with him in that safety backing and Jack Henderson as a nickel or the Sam linebacker at times for the Gophers. So that's the typical outlook for these guys. But there are times where all of a sudden you're seeing Jack Henderson work back to safety, Darius Green coming down to the nickel, or you're seeing Coleman Bryson get in at safety, Darius Green working in the nickel, or Jack Henderson. So the thing that can really mess some of these quarterbacks up, you're studying film and you're getting used to some of these personnel packages and who you should be looking for and who's going to give you your keys while you're out there trying to get a read of the land before you snap the ball. And all of a sudden they switch positions and you don't know when that's going to come. You don't know how it's going to come. You don't know if they're going to switch or if they're not. What are the triggers? That can cause a lot of chaos because it can give you looks that you think you're going to have an opening. You think you're going to have a way to attack the defense, and suddenly the entire picture changes as soon as you snap the ball. That is deadly. That is what gives especially young college quarterbacks or newer college quarterbacks problems. Now, there are a lot of newer college quarterbacks in this conference. We don't know what's going to happen with Nebraska. We don't know. Well, we probably know Wisconsin will start Tanner Mordecai, but he's used to some of those things. Maybe he is one of the guys that is more of an exception to understand those things, but who knows? Because they haven't seen these things before. But then you talk about younger guys. Purdue is going to have a new quarterback. Nebraska is probably going to have a new quarterback. There are so many teams that are going to have to be able to put up with that. And it's going to be things they probably haven't seen. So I think that safety nickel flexibility is going to be huge for the Gophers defense. And I am excited to see it worked in more, hopefully in the spring game, in the fall camp. But those are things that these teams don't have. Actually, back it up, Kane. Slow down. The spring game, you might not see it at all. Why is that? Because the spring game is televised. The spring game is put out there. And I can tell you in my prior life doing video coordinator work, we absolutely recorded some other team's spring games. So that way, that was the only thing we'd maybe have some tape on because they had a new coach or because they had a new coordinator or because etc. So the spring game absolutely gets recorded by these teams, their video coordinators and things like that, and they break it down and try to get little bits and pieces of information that they can. So you probably won't see it in the spring game very much, but hopefully we'll see it more in the fall camp as well. But that's one thing that is extremely intriguing. Other things that have been exciting over this spring camp and you can look forward to hopefully in the next season is more internal pressure. We've talked about it, but Devin Eastern, Kyler Baugh, Darnell Jeffries, Logan Richter, all four are the main four in that defensive line rotation right now when it comes to the interior defensive line. All four look significantly improved, are causing more ruckus in there for these offensive linemen. They're trying to take two at times. They're stuffing the run game. They're creating problems, which is great to see. And overall, I think it's going to be a step up from what we saw when it comes to the pressure of the defensive line. And I think Devin Eastern could be a real difference maker in that department. Now, when it comes to blitzing and when it comes to pressure on the outside, I think you're going to see a lot of pressure with speed out there. You're going to see guys like Devin Williams. You're going to see guys in the nickel like Darius Green, like Jack Henderson. They have true speed. They have big size. They can cause chaos, cause disruption, but I think they're going to be coming in hot off the edge. And I think we'll see some blitzes, some sacks from that department as well. So I think that is encouraging. Like I said, I think the pressure of this team is going to be better. I think it's going to be a step in the right direction. Now, Darius Green has been working in the nickel. He's also been working in the safety department. Henderson has worked in the nickel. Fleming has worked in the nickel. So there's some flexibility to it all. And that is something that I like with this Gophers team. I think that is a strength of this defense that's younger, that has new guys stepping into huge minutes. I think a lot of what you're going to see is the flexibility and the movement across the defense that will be huge and hopefully cause some confusion for personnel readings on the opposing offense. Now, the final thing that I think is going to be a question, like we've said, is that cornerback room. I've already talked about, I have concerns here. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the depth in the cornerback room, especially with the current landscape changing in the Big Ten, looking like it's going to pass a lot more. Nebraska looks more pass-oriented. Wisconsin looks more pass-oriented. Michigan's J.J. McCarthy looks like they'll trust him a little bit more. They'll still be a run team, but could have more passing elements. We're taking on Ohio State this year. We're taking on UNC. There's going to be a lot of passing coming our way. So we need some cornerback depth. We need these young guys to really click and get in quick. And so that will be something we continue to monitor as we go. And then the last question I have is what happens at the Sam linebacker, because we're seeing a lot of Joey Gerlach when it comes to the actual true traditional Sam linebacker, but otherwise we see nickels there. When it comes to ones and twos, you see a lot of Joey Gerlach, but I think we might add another linebacker in this portal maybe, because it seems like he's getting almost all of the reps there. What happens if something terrible happens, an injury, ineligibility, academics, who knows, something can come up. You don't want to lose everything because one player isn't there. So I think that might be a position that we target in this transfer portal season. So now we've talked about the things to get excited about. We've talked about maybe some of the changes, what's cooking up, but finally there's something different with this defense that has me the most excited. I know we've had 2 years now where we've been top 10, top 15 defenses in the nation, but there's something uniquely different that has the ceiling for this defense maybe higher than both of those. And it's one thing that I think is key to any successful defense, and that's what we're closing this thing with coming up next. All right, Gophers fans, the one thing that holds this thing together, has a higher ceiling, has me excited and ready to go, is the coaching chemistry with this defense. It's way more apparent, in my opinion. You go out there, you can see these guys vibing with each other. You can see the chemistry building. You can see the intricacies. You can see the details of what they're looking for. The little details are everything when it comes to this defensive staff. Coach Collins, Coach Rossi, Coach Debo, Coach Monroe, and the interactions between them all that I've seen, they've been very consistent, and everything is about little details. Detail work with the youth will go a long way. You're talking about finding the intricacies with your sophomores, with your juniors, with your freshmen. Those are the guys that you're working on that little nitty gritty work now. If they can put it together and they continue to work on that over the summer, and they come into fall camp and they know it's about the details and they know the grind, that is going to be massive for this defense, not only now, but moving forward, because it sets the standard for what the work is, what the development is, what the grind is for this program. And if you have your true freshmen, your redshirt freshmen learning it that way, they teach that to the next class and the next class. And that is how you continue to build consistency. So it's huge. It's massive, and it has me excited because it's not just one coach doing it. It's not just Coach Joe Rossi. It's not just Coach Collins, who's been a part of the program for a while. No, it's Coach Debo walking in and immediately contributing in that manner. It's Coach Monroe walking in and having that expectation. And that all comes from them having relationships with each other outside of just now. They've had relationships. Coach Debo was a player and he worked in the system, and he talks about how he wants to be Coach Joe Rossi one day. That's something he strives for, is to be just like Coach Rossi and have that care for his players, but also the nitty gritty, the dirty details, and getting into the intricacies of everything. You've got Coach Nick Monroe, who went and observed Coach Rossi at times in their off seasons, and vice versa. Coach Rossi would go and observe Nick Monroe, and they talk about that in some of these early pressers. They've had these relationships, and the energy out there is just different. The players at every level seem excited about the coaching and the details, and even through learning in the struggles. Typically, we see more frustrations with players when it's out there and things are going wrong, or there's sacks or interceptions or miscommunications on the field. You see players getting frustrated, or, oh, why we stink, or why is this happening, or we should be better. But these players are taking it and they're like, no, how do we clean this up? How do we do this? And it's less frustration, and they're not less vocal when it comes to on the field or in these pressers, but they're more vocal. They're excited about it. They're ready to keep learning, ready to keep pushing, ready to look at how they can be better, work better, do better. So that all should have you excited for what could come with this defense. Now, communication on the field is going to be the biggest thing for this Gophers, because it's a young team, because there's new leaders stepping up to the plate. So I think overall, that's the biggest thing that needs to continue to improve, but I have no doubt that it will. Now, you lost a lot of vocal leaders, because Mariano, who is vocal as heck out there, is gone. Howden, who is a communicator, is gone. Trill, who is vocal and an energizer, is gone. Now, Newbin is extremely energized and vocal, so he'll definitely lead in that department. But you're seeing more of it in these practices. You're seeing Cody Lindenberg step up to the plate. You're seeing guys like Kyler Baugh, who recently started talking more on the field. He talked with us in the media recently. So it's good to see that, and it's good to see it translate to the field. You pair that with the coaching energy and chemistry. You pair that with the little nitty-gritty details. I think this Gophers defense and the Gophers program in general is going to continue to be underrated when it comes to the national media, when it comes to the conference media, Big Ten Network, all that stuff, even opposing fans. They're going to continue to be like, oh, the Gophers, they're nothing. They're whatever. We're going to pass them this year. Oh, they're our little brother program, all that stuff. You're going to hear it all. But you know what? The results are all that matters. And so far, the results are 3 straight full seasons of 9+ wins. And we're looking to continue that trend with a more difficult schedule, with a less of a cakewalk non-conference, and so much more. It's time to get excited with a young team, and we'll see what happens heading into the 2023 season. And spring is just about to close. So spring game comes up this Saturday. I hope to see you all there. Thank you for listening to Locked On Golden Gophers. Tomorrow we're talking about NFL draft prospects with John Bogle, and then we'll do some final spring game wrap-ups before we hit the game itself. Be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube. This is Kane Rob signing off. I'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy, row the boat, sky you ma, go Gophers.